From Pocketnow.com, this is Pocketnow Weekly.
Hello, and welcome to episode 021 of the Pocketnow Weekly, the once-a-week podcast from Pocketnow.com, where we discuss what's hot and what's cool in the world of mobile technology, from Windows to Android to iPhone to other platforms we like just as well sometimes. I'm your host, Michael Fisher, senior editor at Pocketnow, and I'm joined by our managing editor, 27 hours without a cigarette, Anton D. Nagy. Good afternoon to you, sir.
Good morning to you guys.
Congratulations.
Don't push me.
So far. And by our Android guy, the man with the Nexus collection, Joe Levi. How are you?
Good morning, Pocketnow.
He's obviously much better than I am.
I was going to say, Tony just is going to leap through the internet and strangle Joe.
Small blessings. I'll take them however I can get them.
It's good to have you back on the show there, Joe. It's been a little while.
Always good to be here,
but
always live tweeting.
Always live tweeting. This is my favorite part of the Pocketnow podcast. My favorite accident from the podcast. I want to jump right in with a. We've had a lot going on this week as usual, and we have a lot of devices to talk about. We have some reviews, some after the buzzes that went up this week, and just a whole lot's going on. But probably most visibly is this thing that I think we all three of us can weigh in on. And this was a suggestion from Tony to talk about because Microsoft has kicked off its newest Windows Phone marketing kind of
stunt.
Yeah, stunt. It's not even a campaign. And it's not really even that new. It's a reboot from last year, and it is something that if you're on Twitter, you've seen probably marked by the hashtag Droid Rage.
Or the response, Windows Rage.
Windows Rage, right. So Microsoft has this tweet that says, "Do you have an Android malware horror story? Reply with hashtag Droid Rage with your best or worst story, and we may have a get well present for you." So Microsoft is capitalizing on this kind of non-story about Android malware experiencing some kind of uptick. And it has been, I kind of looked at the hashtag, I just did a quick search of it before coming on the air, and it looks to me like one of the biggest backfires in a very long time. I mean, Tony, as you mentioned, there's this response hashtag called Windows Rage.
Yeah.
Android Central has gotten something that's gotten retweeted a whole lot, where they're like, "Whoops, just activated another 1 million devices today. Sorry about that, Windows Phone." Droid Rage.
Good one.
And even like individual users, not just fan sites, are responding with just using the Droid Rage tag completely improperly. What do you guys think about this? I hate it when companies engage in attack ads against each other. I hate it when Samsung does it to Apple. How hilarious / annoying is this to each of you? Either of you can weigh in.
Well, the Samsung to Apple stuff I kind of like because it's not really, I hate it and it's terrible and it's not full of hate and anger and animosity. It's just kind of politely poking fun. This is calling out the dogs. This is going to war, and it's just not up to par with a company that we expect better, guys. If my kids were doing this, I'd put them in separate rooms, or I'd put them in the same room until they were friends again.
Right. No, absolutely, I agree. I think it's childish, and it's for a company. Maybe there's Tony. Maybe you can weigh in on this. If there's some kind of PR formula that says the exact right time to weigh in with an attack ad, and maybe we just stumbled across that time period, and that's why they're doing this right now.
I have not worked and I have not studied marketing, but I have worked in companies where we had marketing departments. And I personally don't believe that any marketing campaign which is attacking another product, the competition, is deemed for success. Now, those who are following me since I've been writing in technology probably know that I don't really like Google's open model in terms of controlling malware, which is every now and then appearing inside the Google Play Store. I would prefer an a priori system, and that's not in place. But still, Google does a great job at kicking malware out and uninstalling it from phones. But do you guys know which is the first question I am being asked when talking about phones?
No, what is it?
So somebody walks up to me, gets his Android or her Android device out, and the first question how do I install applications without buying them?
Yeah.
So that's the problem. I have never purchased. I mean, I have never installed applications which I have not purchased or which I have downloaded or installed not officially. The problem is when you go to a third, fourth, or fifth party store and you download, I don't want to point fingers from where, applications, you are probably exposing yourself much more than you would if you would just limit yourself to Google Play.
Sure, and that's my point. I think is like I do limit myself to Google Play, as do I think a lot of legit Android users like globally. And I am conscious of the fact that there are viruses and there's malware on Android, on the Android platform, and you have to kind of be careful with your side loading and stuff like that. But I mean, like that seems to be the whole foundation for this campaign, right? Microsoft says they have a to-do list for Android users. Step 1, wait for your Android phone to get infected with malware. And then,
well, the way they make it sound is that everybody is exposed. Now, we've been using Android since the early days, and I have personally never encountered a situation where me or my data was jeopardized. Because I think the rule of thumb here, and Joe would probably agree with me, if an application or any software bit is too good to be true, then it's probably not. So if you find a super game which costs like $0.99, that's probably not the real deal. Or if you find a cheaper copy of a popular game up there, you just don't want to purchase that because something's fishy.
Yeah, I mean, I've had Android since the T-Mobile G1, so a year after Android came out. I personally have never had any malware or anything that could be considered malware on any of my devices, and I do a lot. I push the envelope a lot. I am one of the people that, of anyone, would be likely to be infected, and I haven't been. The closest that I've come is on some of my kids' devices, where they have gotten apps that have AirPush installed, which I hate. But that's
AirPush?
Just an ad campaign. It's a way of monetizing apps by putting ads in them, except they're not in the apps per se. They show up in your notification tray.
Gotta love those.
Really? Oh, that's interesting.
So it's annoying. I get emails almost every day asking me to upgrade my apps to put them in there so I can get so much more money off of them.
Wait, so the ads go in the notification tray?
The ads go in the notification tray even when your app isn't running. There are some people who claim that no, it will only run when the app is running, but I don't know if I believe that or not.
Right.
I haven't seen that to be true.
Well, yeah, and that sounds like a fresh window to exploit for these people out there who do write these malicious Android applications. But I don't know. I mean, we can't spend all day on this. It's just it's very interesting when a PR campaign backfires, and I think this is the Droid Rage thing is right in the middle of this. And if you have a minute. Any of our listeners, either of you guys, if you guys just want to laugh, just plug in Droid Rage into the Twitter search and just watch this S-storm absolutely, taking hold. And you know what? And I think this bears repeating at this point, even though we're about to leap into the Windows section of the podcast. Like, I do like Windows Phone a lot, and I like it more each day, actually. I had a total fanboy moment last night where I realized I had spent about an hour and a half to 2 hours on various Windows Phone forums, and like I had spent 25 minutes organizing my home screen. And this isn't because I was doing it for a reason. I was just kind of having fun nerding out with Windows Phone. So I'm in the club. I get it. It's awesome. I just think it's a really stupid campaign, and a lot of the backfire.
Wait a minute.
What?
You're in the club, and you're rearranging your Windows Phone home screen.
Yeah, what's the matter with that?
Okay, I may be the married guy in Utah, but I know that's not what you're supposed to do when you're at the club.
Oh, no, not that club, Joe Levi. I was at home.
Like
I was
club.
Yes, no, I wasn't out. If I ever manage to visit the clubs that Tony references pretty often, if I ever end up in a Romanian club, Tony, please remind me to rearrange my home screen while I'm there. And
I will.
Thank you, and we'll text Joe Levi. So while we're talking about Windows Phone and while we're talking about home screens, let's leap into the Windows section because it's been a massive news week for us. It's been a big one for Nokia. There's been a lot going on with Nokia, from apps to business events to device reviews, and the latter is what I want to kind of start off with here, because we just reviewed the Nokia Lumia 822, and it's our first quick review, listeners. So if you're missing this in the headline, if you are a fast reader like I am and you sometimes miss the details, it is not it is not our typical full review, which tend to go, what, guys, between 2,500 and 4,000 words.
Something like that.
Oh, I thought you were talking about how many hours it takes us to prepare them.
Oh, right, yes. It's not our typical 25-day review process.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's been kind of interesting, working with everyone to come up with that kind of pared down format. And we're going to alternate between this format and the traditional review format for devices going forward. And I formerly had a word of explanation at the top of this one, which I liked, and I found it beautifully wordy and well crafted. And then Tony came along and was like, "No. This is a quick review. You don't need 800 words explaining why it's a quick review." Which makes sense. I get it.
Defeats the purpose of the quick review.
Exactly. So anyway, if you haven't seen it yet, go ahead. It just went up this morning. Go ahead and check it out. Lumia 822 quick review. And guys, I got to tell you, if you have not headed out, if you're into Windows phones or into smartphones in general, and you just want to see something new, and you're in America, because this is a Verizon Wireless exclusive variant of the 820, you should go to a Verizon Wireless store and check it out, because it is really, really interesting. It is a very ugly phone. I don't think there's any way around it. This phone is just hurting visually. Some people will like it, but it reminds me, as I said in the review, of a bar of soap. Like, it's this thick kind of battleship-esque thing with sharp lines, and I don't know. Maybe it's because I have the white one, and maybe it's because it's got the chin. Maybe it's because it's really thick and really light, and it feels kind of toy-like. But
if you look at it from the front or you look at it from the back, it looks like a decent phone. But as soon as you see it with a side view,
yeah,
wow,
yeah, you see it from the side view, and it looks like something that. Not like a futuristic 80s concept, but maybe something that would have been on MacGyver, like if MacGyver was, in the mid-80s, he's checking out some office with some high technology, and it's like, check out this new remote control from the future, MacGyver. Like, that's kind of what it looks like.
You're being too harsh.
It really does look like a hotel bar of soap.
It does. Tony, you think it looks good to you?
No, it does not, but we don't have to emphasize that.
You're right. We're being a little mean. The thing
is, what's on the inside that counts.
Exactly.
That is true.
And what's on the inside, almost completely matches what's on the Lumia 920, the much higher end device. The casing design, while it may not appeal to everyone, it actually feels wonderful in the hand. And if it weren't for the inferior display, which I talk about, in the review and in the videos, obviously performance doesn't suffer at all because it's Windows Phone, right? But it's just amazing how something, even if you weren't told the price, you weren't told the model number or whatever, but you held the 822 in one hand and the 920 in another, you could instantly tell which one was the premium device and which one was the mid-range. But the 822 has amazing guts, and it has LTE. And that's something that the 810 doesn't, obviously, the T-Mobile's variant, because T-Mobile doesn't have LTE. So Yet, exactly. Sorry, excuse me. But it's fascinating because it's this kind of like transcendent device. It's this phone that's like, oh hey, yeah, I got a mid-range model number and I got a low price tag, and I'm not the prettiest, but I've got an amazing set of features, and it's really, really cool. In that respect.
Just go out and watch the video. You've got a video where you compare the 822 to the 920.
Yeah.
And you bring out some stuff that we've been talking about, but just the on-device experience, They're almost identical in speed and fluidity. And in all honesty, if nobody knows that it's an 822 and knows what that means, someone's going to ask, what phone is this? Oh, it's the Nokia Lumia.
Right.
Oh, okay. And that's all that's going to matter because it performs as good as even the high-end stuff, which is really quite impressive.
Right. And
Plus,
go ahead.
It has something which others don't have: removable battery and micro SD slot.
Exactly. And it's still a paradox to me that this thing, and it's not just a micro SD slot like thrown in as an afterthought, right? It's not like this thing where it's like, yeah, we'll put this in because we can. Like, you can expand the memory up to 64 gigs additional. I mean, that's something that I remember blowing me away at the Galaxy S3 announcement, because I think that was the first device I had heard of that could do that. And you know, the fact, I mean, you can have more than double the memory in this 822 or the 820 for that matter, as in the supposedly higher end Lumia 920. I mean, that's a big deal.
And
Okay, a question for you.
Yeah.
You've handled both devices. What does it make the Lumia 920 a premium phone? And why is this 822 a mid-ranger? Or what's the difference, aside from the camera things, what's the difference which sets them apart in terms of premium and mid-range?
Primarily on specs, you're talking the camera is a big one, and the display, and the build quality. I know we talked about the build quality a little bit, but just to touch on it, then kind of move on. It is unmistakable, the feel in the hand you get from these things. Yeah, if you hold the 822 in a vacuum, like Joe suggests, it's just that new Nokia Lumia for Verizon, and it's fine. And people are like, oh, that's a good weight, and it kind of looks like a toy, but it feels good in the hand. But then you put the 920 in your hand, and people might say, holy God, this is heavy. But they are also going to like feel that curved glass on the edge of the screen. They're going to feel the kind of concave Nokia smile thing, and the polycarbonate even feels better. And these are both glossy devices, by the way. The white 822 and the white 920 have the gloss finish. But because of the removable battery, you tap on the back of the 822, like I'm doing now, and it's this kind of hollow.
It's empty on the inside.
Yeah, this toy-like thing, which is, once again, in a vacuum, considered by itself, it's not going to bother anybody. You hold the 920 in the other hand, you know which one is the premium phone, and there's no mistaking it. Then you are, running them both at the same time. And on the video, this didn't show very well, but the, what is it? Not the super sensitive touch, because they both have that. What does Nokia call their high frame rate, their 60 hertz thing on the screen? It's like, I don't know.
Got me.
The clear motion or pure motion HD plus. God, I hate all these brand names for features, but like the higher frame rate, the fact that the Lumia 920 screen never really drops below 60 frames per second, that is something that I didn't expect to notice, and I do. Like when you go to another device, it's like, oh wow, it's strange. It's running Windows Phone just as smoothly, but it's not visually as smooth. It's tough to explain.
So it's not really a lag. It's just more of a not quite as buttery smooth.
Exactly. It doesn't appear visually as buttery smooth. It's still one-to-one, and there's no lag to speak of, but it's visually much smoother.
Maybe it's because of the resolution.
It's probably the resolution in combination with the frame rate, because I'm telling you, I can see the frames now on a 30 FPS, or whatever this the other device.
My friend, if you can see frames in 30 FPS, you got great eyesight.
I do. Well, remember one of the things that occupies a lot of my time is running a YouTube channel where we routinely shoot at 240 FPS. And so I can tell the difference between 30 and 60 pretty well. But at any rate, and then there's the camera, Tony, you mentioned. And I don't want to spend all day talking about this, so this will be the last thing I touch on unless you guys have another question. The camera on the 810 and the 822 surprises the heck out of me because it's really good. It's not PureView branded. It doesn't have the optical image stabilization. But it delivers really, really good results, especially in low light, if you remember to use the scene settings in the viewfinder software. Like if you look at the photos I've captured in the review, they're not going to win any awards, but they're for a mid-range device, for an 8-megapixel mid-range device with a sensor that small, it does a really, really fantastic job, especially in video.
I agree with you. I had the opportunity to review the 610, which I believe was the first phone to come with Tango.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you.
Low specifications. And that phone, aside from the fact that it was dirt cheap, also had great camera performance. So Nokia does one thing right.
Right.
Good cameras and good camera performance, regardless of whether it's a premium device or a mid-ranger.
Well, what's interesting is that the Lumia 900 had a really crappy camera. Remember that? I remember getting the 900 for review for about 2 weeks, and I was like, wow, I can't believe how bad this camera is, especially since it's calling out the Carl Zeiss optics, and like, what's the deal here? But
oh, that's optics? I thought that was a feature where you could have your name engraved on the back of the phone.
Brutal. Joe is referring to the very soft metal that bracketed the lens on that thing. Oh God, I had that thing scratched up inside 2 days just from taking it in and out of a pocket. That was the first question I asked a Nokia rep when I saw the 920. I was like, "Did you guys change the metal on that camera bezel?" And he was like, "Yeah, totally." I was like, "Oh, good."
We know it's bad, so yeah, we fixed it.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah, that's the 822. Take a look at the review. We've had some cool comments on the YouTube, the full review video, and on the comparison videos. Some people are saying the 822 and the 810, the special variants, are getting all the love, and the 820 isn't getting enough coverage. And all these devices have the same core, right? They're all the 820 in spirit. It's just interesting to see these modifications done for carriers, because it's not like the HTC 8X, which is the same hardware almost between Verizon and AT&T, with the exception of some radio stuff. You know, I mean, it's not like that. It's like Nokia has actually built a complete custom chassis for both T-Mobile and Verizon Wireless with this 820 variant. And I think that's pretty cool, even though I don't particularly like the way it came out in this instance. Speaking of Nokia stuff, because we are only halfway through our Nokia news feed, Adam Lane had an awesome video up. I think it was yesterday. Was yesterday the photo beamer story? Does anybody?
December 5, yes.
Yeah. So Nokia released this. Nokia's been on a tear, by the way. They've been releasing apps for Windows Phone into their Nokia collection, or updating them, or doing something like every day. Every day I go into the Microsoft Store on my Windows Phone devices, and there's a new Nokia collection title in there. And there's one called Photo Beamer, which is a really strange title for an app, so it immediately caught my eye. And this is an awesome, awesome feature. Have you guys both seen the Adam's video?
I have, but you go on, and I will ask you something after that.
Sure. Tony, Joe, have you seen it?
Yes, I have seen Adam's video.
Good.
And if you haven't seen it, it's a very good video to watch. Interesting concept.
It is awesome, and it is also kind of cool to see Adam Lane talk to his Xbox, because I don't get
that was cool.
That was awesome. Adam Lane's like, yeah, we're gonna just go to a YouTube we're gonna go to a URL in the browser here, and then I'm expecting him to like cut to a keyboard, but he talks over his shoulder. He's like, Xbox. Go to the web browser, or whatever he says. It's awesome. It's a great video. But the deal is, and yes, I know you've been able to do that forever. I'm not that much of a newbie. I just haven't seen it in a while. But the deal with Photo Beamer is you install it on your Windows Phone, your Nokia Windows Phone specifically, and you go to a URL on either a computer or a computer attached to a TV or whatever, anything with a web browser. You go to photobeamer.com. And when you fire it up on your phone, you can scan the QR code that pops up on the remote device, on the TV, on the computer, whatever you're using to visit photobeamer.com. And it creates a data link between your device and the device you're using to show your photos. And then you can swipe through your gallery, and it displays photos from your gallery on the larger screen or on the remote screen. And it does
with transitions and with swipes, and
yeah,
it's really pretty well done.
It's really, really awesome. And I mean, that's all you have to do. Seriously, you fire up Photo Beamer, you scan the QR code, boom, you have a connection, and you just swipe right from your hand, and it changes on the screen. It's not instantaneous. There is a delay. I actually managed to get like a 5 or 6 second delay between photos at one point. But I mean, it's such a cool, simple, free app, and it's something that I think I'm still stunned. How well it works for how simple it is.
Yeah. So to explain the concept and
Please.
A little bit of the delay, being a web guy in my other life, you've got your device that has this app on it. You've got any device that has a web browser. So in this case, Adam uses Xbox, but anything with a web browser will work or should work.
And an internet connection.
Yes, and an internet connection on both sides. So the QR code essentially just sets up a session between your phone and that particular web browser. The phone then will upload that image, and those images can be relatively large, and your internet connection may be relatively slow, to some server somewhere that then it has to download from that server to the web browser. So there's going to be some inherent delay, especially as we get into very, very high resolution images.
Right.
So it's not just going from your phone to the web browser in front of you. It's not that short. It's actually going to some server out on the internet and back.
I see.
So it's kind of justifiable that there's some delay. Don't be too upset with it.
Oh,
I totally get this, and I can totally agree to the fact that it's super cool, and I understand the difference between this and the standard DLNA, which was there on LG phones from day one. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to think of a real-life scenario when I would find this useful.
But I'll give you one. Like when I visit my aunt and uncle, right, who have a giant big screen TV, and they're a little tech savvy, so they've got a web browser. You can browse the web on their TV if you want. Rather than wondering whether my handset has DLNA support, or and trying to figure out that kind of stuff, like it's just as simple as like, hey, Uncle Jim, go to photobeamer.com and let me scan this QR code real quick. Boom! Instantly, I'm kind of showing them pictures. You know what I mean? Like,
I do. I'm just a fan of DLNA. I don't know why. Because maybe I can play back videos and music too.
Yeah, and that's actually a functionality gap that I would like to see filled. Now, is that possible with something like this, with PhotoBeamer? Can you pass any kind of data through an app like this?
From a technological standpoint, yeah.
Technologically speaking, yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I wonder if that will be a future enhancement, and maybe they'll go premium with it, because it can't be, it can't be cheap to. I guess it's Nokia paying for this server space, or no? I actually didn't do enough research on where PhotoBeamer came from. I don't know if they devised it or they bought it, or they're just offering PhotoBeamer under their name and it's made by another company. I don't know. Is there an equivalent on other app stores for this, guys? Do you know off the top of your head, like Android or iOS?
Mm-mm.
I haven't seen one. But
either.
I, like Tony, think that DLNA is where we're going. It's taking us a long time to get there. Apple decided to invent their own thing, which they always do, and they've got, what is it, AirPlay, AirPush?
Yeah,
yeah, they've got AirPlay, which works great if you've got an entire Apple ecosystem running, or if you've got an Android that can take advantage of that, because we can do stuff like that because we're Android. So this PhotoBeamer is kind of an in-between. You don't have to have the Apple ecosystem. You don't have to have a DLNA set up at home or at Aunt Martha's house configured. All you got to do is have some screen with some browser, and it'll work from your phone, guaranteed. It just works. I think it fills a gap for the time being, but DLNA will eventually, as soon as it gets broader adoption across Aunt Martha's house, will replace it.
Well, basically, if you have a computer which is connected to the internet and that computer runs Windows from Microsoft, you already have the backend necessary for DLNA. All you need is a phone which supports DLNA, which most of the phones do, and then you're all set. You just connect to the same Wi-Fi network, and you're good to go.
One of these days, I'm going to go ahead and try out DLNA, and
it's the coolest thing ever.
I'm going to go ahead and report.
Yeah, once you do it, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It sounds geeky, but it's awesome.
Well, no, you know what? But this is geeky. PhotoBeamer is geeky, but it's one of those gee whiz features. That's another thing, right? I feel like DLNA is something that is still firmly rooted in geekiness. And you try and you kind of bring up DLNA to a friend when they ask about the features on your phone, and I feel like maybe my eyes at least would kind of glaze over, like, what is that acronym that I don't care about? Oh, it's about connecting to TVs. Who cares? But you show them like there's something that doesn't require much in the way of setup at all. You do this QR code scan with your phone that nobody's heard about except for the past month, thanks to the ad push. And like, what's this weirdo doing with his Lumia? Oh, holy crap! How'd you do that? I feel like this is kind of going to do a little bit, not much, but a little bit toward pushing Windows Phone toward a more, oh wow, gee whiz, that's cool. Can I do that with my phone?
There goes our clean tag.
Oh, I was like, wait a minute, what? Anyway, let's move on because there's sadder news and then happier news from the world of Nokia, and this is weird. They have Nokia has sold its headquarters building, and they've stayed on as a primary tenant, so they're not leaving. But they sold their headquarters in Espoo. How do you pronounce that? Is that how you pronounce it?
It's Espoo only in English. It's Espoo.
Espoo.
I think it's. I think I don't know, but I think.
Okay. See, this is sad because I think I had just finished reading some stories about the 920 sales numbers are up 300% for Windows Phone, whatever that means, and Nokia Lumia demand is very high, and Lumia pre-orders are matching the iPhone pre-orders in the Netherlands, and then it's like Nokia's selling their headquarters building. And that's, obviously this doesn't mean the company is folding or anything like that, but a company
yes,
that
it
is...
does.
It's not a good sign.
Exactly.
It's not a good sign
This
at
is
all.
what I want to ask you guys for your input on. I mean, I don't think there's any debate that a company that's doing well doesn't sell its own headquarters building. But how bad a sign do you think this is?
Very.
Really?
Very bad.
Really?
Just put yourself in their shoes and imagine your need to sell your car or your home and stay there as a tenant just for you to get your hands on more cash.
It's a title loan. It literally is a title loan.
You could barely... Okay, how many factories has Nokia closed in the past? How many people were fired? There's nothing left to sell from Nokia, which is not essential except for the HQ.
Right. So now I wonder, though. I mean, so they got $220 million U.S. for this thing, which isn't a whole lot of cash in the grand scheme of things. But as Steven says in his story, it could give the company some breathing room while Windows Phone adoption comes on. So I feel like this is the point at which the Lumia line really has to take hold, and we don't know yet whether that's going to happen on Windows Phone 8 or not. But it doesn't look bad. It certainly looks like a much brighter picture than it did for the initial wave of Lumias running Windows Phone 7. So do you think that... I'm still hopeful for Nokia's future, is I guess what I'm saying, even though they've sold their headquarters building. And now, is that foolish? Is that stupid optimism?
I think this gives a totally new meaning to... Nokia is all in on Windows Phone.
I think you are totally right.
I would have to concur.
Yeah.
I don't ever think that hope is a bad thing. Let's never discourage being hopeful because Nokia is a fabulous player. They make wonderful hardware. We've seen that. The Lumias look really, really nice. Yeah. And just in my opinion, as an Android guy, we really need that other player in the arena to make things better for all of us. Selling your corporate headquarters, to me, just says we couldn't get a loan to help get us through this rocky period because nobody wants to give us money. The bankers aren't hopeful, so let's start selling assets that then we're either buying back, which means instead of paying back $220 million, it's $220 million plus tax,
right.
Or they're leasing it, which is they're not even going to get it back. They're just throwing that money down the drain. It's like rent. You never see it.
Just following up on what Joe just said, it's not even Nokia's fault. I mean, Nokia is doing everything in its power to bring good devices out there with good looks, good materials.
Totally.
It's the fact that Nokia now depends on the success of a product which comes from another company.
That they have very little control over.
Yes.
Or say.
They did their best. They brought everything which was in Nokia's power, even their HQ, they brought it to the game, and now it's no more up to them.
That's an interesting way to look at it.
Success or failure.
That's a very good point, and the phrasing that you just used, Tony, was very interesting. Like Nokia has really, really put itself completely at the mercy of Windows Phone's success or failure. And that is going to be viewed as either, well, just another thing they had to do, or, maybe in a year or two down the line, when the company is flush with cash again as a result of the success of this Lumia effort, it's going to be viewed as the darkest day when nobody really knew whether it was going to, succeed or flop. And it'll be interesting to see which way it goes. I will say, Joe, I agree. I think I think hope is never a bad thing. And to inject a little bit of hope before we move on here, Sprint did this. Sprint did something very similar. They didn't sell their headquarters, but Sprint, the third largest carrier in the United States, sold its network, basically. It back, I think, about 3 or 4 years ago when it was doing really, really poorly, it basically made a move to get rid of all of its physical holdings. It sold its towers and to another company. I don't know if it was Ericsson or TowerCo or something like that. And basically just said, no, we're going to be a service provider. We don't want to deal with the real estate aspect of this. And that was their PR spend. But, of course, the real deal was that they were losing so much money that they needed a quick infusion of cash to stay alive, I think.
Just to be a jerk, because I can.
Yeah.
Could you guys imagine that board meeting when Stephen Elop came in together with probably the CFO or somebody who knows numbers when he wakes up in the morning and just says stuff about things, and he's like, guys, we need to sell this.
Yeah, can you imagine? No, I mean, that would be a hell of a meeting to have right before lunch. But my point is that Sprint still exists, you know what I mean? And they're actually doing really well now as a result of that move that they had to make. And it's that thing you have to do, right? It's like, wow, I've had this pocket watch for forever, but if I don't sell it on eBay right now, I'm not going to be able to pay rent. Like, I've been in that situation before. It sucks. But
yeah, I bought your pocket watch.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I wish you'd spend a little more money on it. Anyway, we'll see how it ultimately plays out for Nokia. Just a really interesting, not the brightest chapter in the company's history, but I still have hope for their survival. But not based on their low-end offerings. Nokia is introducing the Lumia 620, and Tony, I definitely want to hear your take on this as the guy on the team who I think has handled the lowest end Nokia device there is, and the 610, right? Or what there was at the time. The 620 is a really, really cheap Windows Phone 8 device that its primary point of attraction seems to be that it has a double finish. It's a $250 phone, first of all, unlocked, which is pretty cool. But what is it? These are brightly colored back covers on this Lumia 620 that are finished first in one color of polycarbonate and then sprayed over with another color of polycarbonate or something like that. I don't know. All I know is there's like a lime green and a bright yellow phone on my screen, and
a pink and a blue and a black and a white.
Yeah. So these are nothing to get excited about, and we kind of bandied around an email yesterday on the team, what is the deal with this, this low-end Lumia push, this 510, this 620, this 610, this 7? I mean, Tony, you wrote this story. What are your thoughts on this device, and where's it going?
I think Nokia is thinking in two different ways. First of all, we've heard, I think recently, but also at the beginning of this year too, that in order to succeed in being a competitor for Android, Nokia needs cheaper devices because Android devices are very cheap. I mean, low-end and some mid-range devices. So in order to if they want to have a chance at grabbing a small chunk of that market, they need cheap Windows phones. Mm-hmm. And on the other end, Stephen Elop, every time I listen to him or I watch his keynotes, he's also talking about those people who want to be, or who Nokia wants them to be, first-time smartphone users. The first connection to the internet. They want to connect 1 billion people to the internet. They tried that with Asha phones in the emerging markets, and they're trying to do that again with this Lumia 620, with the 610, and as you mentioned, with the other low-end phones.
Yeah.
Whether if it's a good thing to have such a low-end phone in the portfolio, I say yes, because Windows Phone, whether if it's 7, 7.5, 7.8, I'm sure it will be, or 8, is designed in such way that even with lower specs, it will still run buttery smooth. And once you get that experience, of course, give or take an application or two like Skype, which are not working you can have that experience, be part of an ecosystem, and Nokia, as well as Microsoft, are desperate to get their hands on new customers.
Now, this is a very, very interesting point because we talked about this a little bit in the email thread as well. Like, I totally get that impulse, right? There is still so many. This is the refrain of struggling smartphone makers everywhere. There are so many non-smartphone users out there. Let's capture them. Let's make sure they're on our platform first. We need to get them. But, you know, I feel like people who are on dumb phones still, and I'm not talking about the people who just want to be on a flip phone forever and hate smartphones. I'm talking about regular people who are eventually going to upgrade to a smartphone. Don't care. Like, when they dream at night about the smartphone they're going to get, they don't dream about a mid-range 1-cent phone on a contract. They don't dream about a $150 phone that's, you know, this cheap thing that's like, look, it's multiple colors.
They do not. And even though they are the end consumer and the target of this device, they are really not. Think of this and introduce in the equation the carriers. When you go to a carrier, let's say any carrier in this world, we'll probably buy a couple of 100,000 devices from you, Nokia, and we'll put it on an offer, either a prepay offer or a low-end cheap contract, and here's the phone for free, or here's the phone for $1 or one other currency. And that's how they need to capture users.
But can't carriers tell a manufacturer to take their product back if it doesn't move, though?
Well, the world, the globe, the Earth is kind of huge. So we're not necessarily talking about the U.S. market only here. We're talking about those carriers in other regions, Europe too, which are not the top 1, 2, or 3 carriers, which are 3rd, 4th, 5th carriers, which need also to have something attractive in their portfolio.
No, I get that, and I'm not taking an Americentric view of this. All I'm saying is, like, I remember what happens when, you know, like Best Buy. Best Buy is a huge retailer in the States. It's an example I have because it's fresh in my mind. And when they got shipments of the HP touchpad and it turned out to be a flop, you know, there were these rumors that were being reported on where it's like Best Buy wants to send 200,000 touchpad units back to HP. You know, I mean, because carriers do have the option to do that if a device doesn't move, right? Can't they just tell the manufacturers to take it back? Like, I don't know. I don't know enough about the business relationship between.
It all depends on the contract that comes with the device, but they've always got one little tool in their toolbox, and that's, well, we're not going to order any of your new device that you have such a big media push behind until we clear out all of these old ones.
Sure, right. And fire sales.
Yeah, since that's never going to happen because the new one's out, then they can negotiate better deals and swaps and whatnot.
Yeah.
I don't know about you guys, but I can see this Lumia 620 in a nice colored box with the carrier logo on it, going for, I don't know, $99 or 49 euros with a prepaid SIM inside it with a number and $5 or €5 credit, which you can talk and then top up.
Sure. I just don't know. I can see it too. I just don't know if the customers that are looking for that kind of like really bare bones smartphone plan are going to want to.
Well, you and I are looking when we're going to Berlin or Barcelona.
Well, yeah, but I'm not going to get a 620.
Give me the 920.
All right, let's. I want to save my Surface RT discussion for when Brandon is back, because he and I have to trade notes and we're running a little behind. But while we're talking about companies in decline, just to close out Windows Phone really quickly. Oh, geez, HTC. Can we
again?
Just come on, man. I hate it. I feel like this happens every quarter, because you know what it does. Every single quarter, HTC announces their numbers, and today they are 31.4% down compared to the same quarter in November 2011.
To the month.
To the month, right? Okay, yeah. And October's numbers were 61% down, right? I'm looking at the write-up that you did here, Tony. This is now you updated this story with a metric that, am I reading this right? Is maybe would give us a little bit of hope.
Yes, I was a bit perverted when I came up with this headline. HTC is 31.4% down compared to November 2011, but is 23.18% up compared to last month. So in the picture of this moment, they are climbing. But compared to last year, they are still down. So they are on a climbing trend.
Why do we think they're on a climbing trend? Is that a combination of the 8X paired with the DNA?
I think yes.
That's interesting.
Do we have October's numbers from last year to see if this is cyclical or if this is some real recovery?
That's a really good question.
They are somewhere, but not in my reach.
Yeah, not mine either. October's numbers were 61% down from the previous October. Yeah, I'm not sure, and we probably will need some more time to fully analyze this time, which we don't really have. But we say this almost every podcast. We love you, HTC, and we really, really, really are kind of always plugging for them to succeed. But hopefully, this decline that we're tired of seeing can be arrested by this mysterious flagship device, which will carry us into the Android segment of our podcast, which is very, very new rumor news. I think it's only about 2 or 3 days old. There is a rumored M7, and this is not the Droid DNA, right? This is not the international version of the Droid DNA. This isn't the, what is that called? The Deluxe. But
as far as we know.
As far as we know, it's something rumored for early 2013. This comes from an analyst, I think, and it's... Anything that comes from analysts, I'm always like, all right, well, we'll see. But it looks like a lot of outlets pick this up, and it looks like this M7 at this point still looks maybe like it could be legit as a flagship model, scheduled for a Q1 2013 release.
This could be very well the Deluxe, the DLX, or the J Butterfly / Droid DNA for Europe or international use. But I think, and this is my personal opinion, HTC made a very, very big mistake with releasing the Droid DNA only on one carrier and only in one country. I would have done it differently, released an international version probably 1 or 2 weeks after that, go with a carrier and capture the holiday season. Now, if they want to come out with a phone, which will probably be the international version of the Droid DNA, and they will do, I believe they will do, it's not going to be earlier than CES or MVC, and that's already too late.
See, I thought that it was coming much sooner than that. I thought that it was kind of like on the roadmap and already there, like ready for shipping right now, but it's not. Is that correct?
It should have. I believe it should have been their first priority.
Well, here's the thing, though, right? I can see why they would do this. Like, I agree that they should not miss the holiday season at all. But when you do the Droid DNA and you put it on Verizon, what happens is, as we've seen in our comments, a bunch of people on the internet, and I mean hundreds of people, go, "What? America only? This is crap!" And it generates a whole bunch of buzz for the device. And then when you release it internationally, there's this kind of built-up demand, as long as you don't wait too long. So I can understand why they would have made that kind of, decision. But I don't know if it's going to ultimately pay out or not. I know the Droid DNA is really hot, and HTC probably doesn't have the money. You know how we complain about HTC not advertising enough compared to Samsung? Well, I don't think HTC has the budget necessarily to match Samsung on that, so they need a carrier partner in the States to say, yeah, listen, name this thing the Droid, and we'll pick up, half or 3/4 of the marketing bill for you to move these units, I don't know.
I'm sorry, I lost you there completely.
No.
I didn't lose you, so I'll chime in. Samsung has done a really good job with creating brand recognition for their devices. You can go and get a Galaxy S3 on virtually any carrier out there, and all pretty much the same time. Obviously there's a month here, a month there where you can't, but that just leads up to the anticipation. Within a quarter, let's say, you have complete saturation across the major carriers of this wonderful, fabulous device that Samsung's leading with. HTC has... Well, they've got this platform, and here it is on Verizon USA, and we don't know if it's going to come anywhere else, and it just slows down. And the buzz and the hype and all of that synergistic marketing that could happen for the device,
just peters
decoupled
out
from the carrier, isn't there.
Right. Yeah. And, it's a chicken or the egg thing, too, because, Samsung has gotten to a place, they've built themselves up to a place where, they have a lot of buzz on this because it's a very successful brand name with the Galaxy S, the Galaxy Note. But, and they've gotten that respect from the carriers where they can push a launch on all 4 U.S. carriers and a lot of worldwide carriers at almost the same time. and HTC isn't there yet. And I think that they have to play ball with a carrier that says, yes, we'll give you an exclusive. And yes, we'll spend some advertising dollars on your behalf, but it has to be an exclusive. You can't release an international version for X months. If I were HTC, I'm not sure I would be doing anything different.
Exclusivity is just killing everybody. It's going to kill innovation, and it's ultimately going to come back and hurt the carriers.
Well, look what it did for the iPhone, though, right?
The one exception, yes.
I don't know. It's a crazy thing. Are you going to get one, Tony, when it turns international?
Absolutely, and I would have probably spared enough money to get one unlocked this holiday season, but HTC didn't seem to want me as their customer since I'm an international customer. So this is why I'm so bitter and angry.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, I'm always aiming, or I'm thinking I should always aim at capturing a huge chunk of the market instead of a limited one. Now, we can argue that I don't know everything or anything about this. Maybe they have problems at their factories with yield rates and stuff like that. But still, the way I see it, the HTC Deluxe, or whatever its name will be, would have probably outsold, and this is going to be bold, the Galaxy S3 this holiday season.
That is a solid, bold claim. But you know what? I'm not ready to disagree with you because it has the buzz behind it.
Yes. And it's a great phone.
And it's a great phone. We've talked about it for
great company.
3 podcasts in a while. But here's the thing, Tony. I don't think that HTC made that decision, spitefully or thinking. I think that they have their hands tied. I really think that they're in a rough spot, and they need to kind of take offers as they come. And if Verizon came along with a sweetheart deal because for whatever reason Verizon needed to, re-solidify their Droid brand in the absence of some compelling Motorola offerings because the Razr Max and HD and whatever are not really bringing the heat, then, if you're HTC and you don't have many options, maybe that's what you have to go with. And then hope that you can pick up.
I agree with you, but I think Verizon or any other carrier could have waited 1 month after an international launch. Because by the time HTC comes out with this, they will not be the first 1080p international global phone on the market anymore. Because Samsung snaps its fingers, and they can do this quickly, and from what we've seen, LG is already preparing the follow-up to the Optimus G with 1080p screen, going to AT&T, and I bet LG will also release it globally.
Yeah, and we talked about it. We weren't planning on talking about that, but just to drop that into the feed, we are getting reports of, what is that, the E960, Tony?
Yes.
And is that the thing we've talked about as the Optimus G2, or is that another device? I forgot.
That it sure looks like it's going to be the follow-up to the Optimus G. We've heard some rumors of a 1080p LG phone, the F220, if I recall well. Now, this, I believe, will be, and this is my speculation, the international version of that phone, which will probably be a carrier phone in South Korea. And if my predictions turn out to be true, we'll probably see this phone either at CES or at MWC, but I think it will be CES for the AT&T version, and MWC will be all about the Optimus G2 or whatever the name will be.
Right. We'll see. I think the 1080p revolution is certainly upon us, and I agree that HTC may have missed an opportunity here to milk their time as the only 1080p phone on the market, by not doing the deluxe on an international scale first. And that's a point I made in the A22 review, where I was like, you can deal with the display with yesterday's specs, for a couple months, but the more 1080p screens start flooding the market, the worse it's going to look when you look at your phone and you realize it has a display from 2011.
Yeah.
So it is a big force in the market, and we'll see how it goes for HTC and LG both. Both companies we like. Tony, you like LG, I think, better than anyone else that I know. So I've got my fingers crossed.
You can't leave me out of that. I'm a big LG fan as well.
I didn't know that, Joe. Well, you know what? You have an opportunity to talk about LG for a little bit, because Joe Levi has taken another look at the Nexus 4. We've been doing some stuff at Pocketnow recently where we've been kind of sending our review devices to different members of the team so we can get different perspectives on it, because we all have different views, as is evidenced by all of our podcasts and all of our discussions. And I had another look at the Surface RT this week, and I'm going to talk about that next week when Brandon's back on the show. But Joe has taken another look at the Nexus 4, and I read your piece, Joe, and I liked it a lot. And part of these pieces that is fun is that your expectations have already been set, right? You've read your teammates' review, or if you're a listener, you've read one Pocketnow team member's review, and now there's somebody else with a completely different take on it, saying, well, okay, well here's my view. I agree with these things. I don't agree with these things, and here's what I think overall. Overall, Joe, just what's your, because neither Tony nor I have handled a Nexus 4.
You will bring me one in Barcelona.
Will I? Is that the plan?
Yes, you will.
Oh, terrific.
You just don't know it yet.
Well, now I do. I'll add it to the list. I might bring myself one, based on what Joe tells us now. I mean, Joe, how in love are you with this thing, and or how much do you want to get it out of your house?
Well, first of all, there's two different things that we've got to discuss. The first is Brandon, when he did his review, ran through everything, ran through the equation, and came up with a cumulative score of 7 out of 10.
Right.
And that is causing a lot of comment and discussion, not only on our review, but also on my, not really rebuttal to the review, but the second look at it.
Yes.
So if you haven't been over to the website, make sure you read it. I essentially go in and justify Brandon's 7 out of 10. This is a 7 out of 10 phone.
Boom.
So that's the first side out of the way.
Boom.
That having been said, this is my favorite phone that I have ever used, bar none.
What?
It is my daily driver. I love this thing. I would not go back to a Galaxy Nexus. I would not go back to the SGS3. This is my phone of choice. 7 out of 10 notwithstanding. If you have any doubt about getting this phone, unless one of those things that reduced the score, cost points in the review, just really gets under your skin,
LTE.
You want this phone.
Really?
LTE? No, I don't care LTE. This phone gets 13 to 15 megabit per second on my T-Mobile HSPA.
Right. No,
So-
I've beat that point in the ground already. That's amazing. And this is without the wireless charging orb, right? This is just the device itself.
Yeah, this is just the device itself.
Just checking. That's really not what I expected to hear. Now, this is a good point, and I want to just mention this briefly. You're talking about a phone that is your favorite phone basically ever that scored a 7 out of 10, but you agree with the 7 out of 10. This is the paradox that I don't think a lot of people understand, and rightfully so, because it's very confusing. How can your favorite phone ever score, not low, but score it thoroughly?
Score as the Lumia 822.
Right, exactly. How can your favorite phone in the world match numerically the review I just gave to this phone that we spent 20 minutes discussing how it looks like a bar of soap, right?
And that is really the core. The way we've been doing our reviews, we deduct points for certain areas that aren't done up to snuff. Mm-hmm. The Nexus 4 is slippery. It is more slippery and gross and slimy feeling than the Samsung Galaxy S3, which
You just described the iPhone 4 and 4S.
I just abhor that feel.
And the Optimus G, too.
We reduced points for that.
Because it slides off
But I can
tabletop.
get over that.
Yeah.
I can adjust for that. I can adjust my daily activities, and at the end of the day, I can get past that because what's inside of that device and the screen on that device are just so much better. We can't give super extra bonus points for those that cancel out the negative points for the other. That wouldn't be fair to other devices that we've reviewed in the past. So it's got to take a hit for stuff that it doesn't do perfectly or doesn't do up to the quality that we'd expect, but we can still give full points for the other stuff that we do expect. And when you average things out, it drops it down. So the point, if I've got any statistician friends out there in the audience, we're averaging things here, which has an inherent bias. The 3 points that this phone lost, in my opinion, are outliers. They're things that if we would have done a median or if we would have done another type of figuring of that score, the outliers on the edges would have been dropped off and it might have scored better.
So are you worried? Are you worried about dropping it? I want to know. I'm very.
I'm so worried about dropping it that I did not take the back protective cover off.
You left the film on?
I
still have the film on.
I know. Yeah, Tony makes a very good point. It's not going to help. It's just going to hold the shattered pieces together when you do drop it on its back.
I
and you're going to
disagree with Tony. I put some thought into it, and I thought glass, especially Gorilla Glass, usually is pretty robust and durable until it starts getting scratched. And when it starts getting scratched, then it's more prone to breakage. So if I can keep that back sheet of glass from getting scratched, I'm going to
Joe, I told you so many times, don't place the Nexus 4 on your stash of diamonds.
How did you know I had a stash of diamonds?
Do you remember back?
Because that's the only thing that can scratch your phone.
Well, but
your glass-backed phone.
I've scratched up glass front phones, glass front tablets, just grit and
I just did it to my Lumia 920.
That's in my pocket.
I just dropped my 920 on its face twice in the span of 45 seconds one night, and I wasn't even, impaired. I was just stupid. I was just dumb, and I've scratched it up already. And that's Gorilla Glass too. I mean, glass scratches, particularly when your phone, the phone that's driving it into the ground, is 185 grams heavy, but. Like, what is, I don't know. I get so worried when I think about buying the Nexus 4 because it is the Google device I would like to carry. For
I bet
reasons.
so would many others. And on a fairly related note, without touching the Nexus 4, I'd give it a 0 out of 10. Just because LG Italy said that they will not bring the phone to Italy.
Oh,
Did you guys miss that spot?
No, I saw it in the headlines, but I was. Yeah.
This is strange. I mean, what does Google and LG think? There are like 5 or 6 Google Play stores around the world where you can buy this phone. What about countries like Italy, Romania? Okay.
Yeah.
Other countries which don't have the phone. How can LG Italy say we're not going to bring this phone to Italy? I mean, just screw those million people.
That's an interesting question. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's getting so much buzz. I'll tell you why. Because it's probably because it's getting so much buzz in the United States is because of its price point and because of its value for the price. That I don't think they. I don't want to say LG doesn't need those million prospective customers or however many million prospective customers. I just think that they can't afford to take their focus off of what they're trying to do in regions where it is cheap right now, like America.
Yeah, I think that this is a backfiring thing. I think that this happens when you heavily, and I mean heavily, subsidize a phone, like Google does with the Nexus 4, and then poor LG cannot sell this phone for its true price. Because people say, okay, it's 1/3 of the price in the US or other countries. Yeah, that's because Google subsidizes it.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. I feel like when you boost the price, if I think of a Nexus 4 at a more conventional price, the price that it is sold for in some non-American countries right now, or that it's going to be sold for, I can't imagine ever buying it. One of the driving factors behind the Nexus 4 for me is the fact that it is so cheap. So, Tony, I think that reinforces your point. I think it's that visibility may have shot LG and Google in the foot in an international sense, but
or maybe LG says, okay, I don't need you to buy this phone in Italy. Buy the Optimus G. It's the same thing. It's mine, and this is the price for it.
Right. Well, there is that as well, and the Optimus G, as we've said time and time again, is a really good device. So that could be. I don't know. It's tactically speaking, I don't know what LG's thinking there, but I do want to stay on the Nexus 4 just before we jump over to the other Nexus device. But Joe, you've got CM10 running on that thing, yeah?
Yes.
And I have not seen I've not seen anything on that because I've been too busy with other stuff. How is that? I mean, I have not run a CyanogenMod build in a very long time. And I feel like with the Nexus 4, just as kind of like putting on my average Joe hat, it's like, what? This is the Nexus 4. This has got stock Android already. I'm getting updates. Why do I want a CyanogenMod build? Is it just for like little things like UI enhancements? What do you like better about the CM build than stock Jelly Bean?
You're not the first person to ask that. In fact, a lot of the comments on both the video and the article are readers asking the same question. It's stock Android. Why would you want to custom ROM it? which really kind of confuses me because the reason I get Nexus devices is so I can custom ROM them. It's easier. It's so much nicer to be able to do that. And in my opinion, that's kind of what a Nexus device is designed to do. That's one of its main purposes, is so people out there in the community can root and can custom ROM and can just go to town on it, and it's a Nexus. That's what you do with it.
What it's there for. That's why
so
the program
to answer
was
the
launched,
questions
right?
for you, Michael, and for everybody else, why CyanogenMod? It has not only the core features of Android, just the stock launcher, the stock everything else, but it also takes that and it improves upon them. It takes out some of the weird stuff that 90% of the people out there want, but the 10% of us power users could do without. We can remove that. We can toggle that off. We can turn that off. We have so much more ways that we can customize it. For example, I have 3 home screens. I use profiles. I like being able to theme my phones, my devices, and whatnot. I can do all of that in CyanogenMod, and can't really do that easily with the stock. If Brandon were on, he'd love this. The AOSP browser is the browser that comes with CyanogenMod, not Chrome. So I'm running the AOSP browser.
He would love that.
On my Nexus 4, not Chrome. So I've got all of those speed improvements and all of that fun stuff.
Yeah.
The second point is looking at the benchmark numbers, and we just ran Quadrant and Geekbench, which are 2 of the more telling benchmarks in my opinion. When we ran those stock, it performed a little bit slower with CyanogenMod than with the stock ROM, with stock configurations. As soon as we went in and started doing some of the tweaking, and just very minor tweaking, we're not talking even overclocking, just minor tweaking, we jumped up. In Quadrant, I scored 4908 compared to 4722. And in Geekbench 2, 2137 compared to 1856. So just minor tweaks on CM10 really improves performance and speed without hurting battery life.
It lets you take the thing into the garage and do what a Nexus phone was originally designed to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally get that, and that's good. I'm glad I asked the question because I did not know that a lot of commenters were asking the same question. But you know, I feel like asking the question. I feel like that question being that popular is interesting in that it tells us something about how the Nexus brand is perceived these days. I think people do forget, and myself included, that the Nexus 1, when it came out, was a developer device. You know, it was a thing you used to tweak Android as a dev before before regular people started picking it up. So regular people, before non-developers started picking it up.
Well, it just tells you that before, when we did have the Nexus 1 and to a lesser extent the Nexus S, that were marketed primarily as developer devices, the Nexus brand has now moved out of that type of perception into the mainstream. This is now a mainstream device. Yeah. That also gives you all of the benefits and advantages that a developer device would if you want it to. It gives you freedom, it gives you flexibility, and you can't beat the price.
I am so... go ahead, Tony.
I was about to say that I don't necessarily think that people are buying a Nexus phone or a Nexus tablet because they want to do extreme tweaking. Most people probably have learned from previous mistakes, and a huge thank you goes here to all the carriers and OEMs who do not support phones with timely updates, because the Nexus word guarantees timely updates. And I think this is very important for Android users.
Yes, yeah, agreed. And I think, you know, that hybrid of in smartphones, because we're going to talk about a Nexus tablet here in like 20 seconds, but that hybrid of a device like a Nexus smartphone with a history of being a geeky developer device, with all of its timely updates, with all of its straight from Google goodness, mixed with this kind of new cachet of like, hey, here's this thing that's kind of as well recognized as the Galaxy brand name, but maybe not really. And like you put them, it's like, what is this Nexus thing? What's going on? That is kind of like, I feel like it's consumer catnip. I feel like Google is still sitting on this wonderful resource pool with the Nexus brand that I think it's going to continue exploiting as it goes forward. And I really hope they don't bungle it up, because they didn't manage to torpedo it with the Galaxy Nexus debacle on Verizon Wireless, probably because it's just one carrier in one country globally, and that's good. And it looks like they're determined not to repeat that in the future, as we've seen with the Nexus 4, where they're like, screw you carriers, you're messing up our whole thing, so we don't need to cater to you. The Nexus 4 doesn't have LTE, deal with it. I don't like it, but you know what? I think it probably was a good business decision. Joe Levi has almost the entire Nexus collection over in Utah, if not the entire Nexus collection.
As he should.
The entire. So as he should, I agree.
As he should.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting here with my Nexus 7, still loving it, but being like, man, I would like it. I'd like to get my hands on a Nexus 4.
Well, you want to get that Nexus 10 back in your hands because it's got that super, super awesome back.
That is entirely true. If listeners, you don't remember, I unboxed the Nexus 10 because it was shipped to me, and then I sent it immediately out to Joe Levi for his full review. That's been posted. I really liked the hardware. I really wanted to get to know the device. And having spent some time with the Surface now, I'm used to landscape tablets. So, Joe, briefly, because we don't have too much time, how has the Nexus 10 changed your life? How does it factor into all this Nexus talk?
I have been a 10-inch tablet hater since I got my Motorola Zoom. I just think it's too big, it's too clunky. That form factor is just, it's too big. It's too big to be practical for me to carry around with me. As soon as I got the Nexus 10, that changed. It's about the same size as the Zoom, quite a bit thinner, quite a bit lighter. At least, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it feels lighter.
Agreed.
It finally is a 10-inch tablet that I would carry with me. And even though I'm an Android guy, I don't burst into flames when I pick up a fruity device. So I've touched iPads, and I can compare those as well. They're still in my bucket of 10-inch tablets that I just don't like to carry around. There's something about the Nexus 10 that I don't know if it's the contours. I don't know if it's the grippy back. It probably has a lot to do with the front-firing speakers, and probably an awful lot to do with that gorgeous screen that makes the Nexus 10 the first 10-inch tablet that I don't mind carrying around with me and actually enjoy using.
And that's held true since you received it, and that's still true today. You still use it?
Still true today, yes.
Interesting. What's the app situation like? I know that the Android 10-inch app situation hasn't changed much. How are you dealing with apps that are stretching to fill that big old screen size? I mean, how painful is it?
Yeah.
It is.
Well, for me, it's not as painful as it might be for some others. Although I have had experience with the iPad and some very beautiful apps over there, I don't use it daily, so I'm not used to this tablet-centric, makes it look beautiful display that some of the apps that have been custom crafted for the 10-inch iPads, I'm just not used to it. So when I come over to my Nexus 10, I'm used to those same apps on a Nexus 7. I'm used to the same apps on a Nexus 4 or a Galaxy Nexus, and they look almost identical. There's not a disconnect, and it doesn't look bad to me. Now, seeing how some other people have built their tablet-based apps, there's so much room for improvement. I agree, and that's where Tony says it's painful. It's just not, it doesn't get under my skin like it does a lot of other people. And I can only encourage developers to start taking advantage of the space and making their apps flow and fit better and better utilize the entire space that you have to work on. For me, it's not a game changer or a deal breaker to not have those special format apps.
Let me ask you, as an app developer, as a guy because you've written an app or two in your time, right?
I've got a couple apps in the market, but
in the Android market.
Probably more to the point that you're going toward. I'm a web developer, and as a web developer,
you're more
I have to develop for. I don't know what screen size my stuff is going to be displayed on.
Right. But I mean, just philosophically speaking, as putting on your broad developer hat, say you were developing an app for Android, would the Nexus 10 inspire you to develop a beautiful, large screen Android app? Is it enough? Is it a beautiful enough piece of hardware to spur you to spend some effort on it specifically?
More so than just the Nexus 10, seeing that Google is now officially backing that size and that resolution, I'd put more stock in it now than I have before. I mean, we've had 10-inch tablets before. The resolutions have been different across all of them, essentially. So if I were sitting back and saying, I don't think this 10-inch form factor is going to take off in the Android environment, this would now be my indication to say, okay, let's put some time into making our stuff look gorgeous on a 10-inch tablet.
I think that's where Joe just hit the nail on its head on, straight on. The problem with Google, I don't know much about coding applications, but I think that the problem with applications for the Android platform is not screen size, but screen resolution. For instance, on the Apple ecosystem, the 10-inch form factor has 2 resolutions, or the tablet, the broader concept, a tablet form factor has 2 resolutions. In the Android world, a tablet, whether if it's 7 inches or 10 inches, has multiple, I don't know how many, but at least 3 or 4 resolutions. So I think that that's a problem to code an application. I'm sorry?
I'd say it's got even more than that. I'd go 6 or 8 different resolutions
that is
just in the tablet.
Right.
And then probably that many again on smartphones.
So it's whether Googlers or Android fans love it or not, it's this fragmentation that probably kills the effort or the decision to go with a tablet dedicated application. That would kill me if I would be a developer.
Yeah, you've got to put more work into, well, not only just developing, but into testing. I mean, you've got to have these devices in hand to be able to really know how it's going to look and how it's going to behave. The emulators, they try. In fact, I haven't even gone back and seen, do we have a 10-inch emulator in the Android SDK? I'd assume we do, but the emulators suck. They don't.
What resolution would that use?
Exactly. You know, they don't give you the true feel of what you have in hand. You've also got a numbers game to look at. How many people are running at that resolution versus the other? Where do you want to put your time? Do you want to put it into creating new levels for your game, or adding these 10 new features, or fixing these 10 new bugs? Or do you want to put that time into something that 5% of your customers are going to see because they have these large resolution tablets? So it's all just a business game. It's where do we want to invest our efforts? Where are we going to get the most return on that investment? And this finally is the tipping point where we're going to start seeing more and more emphasis put on the 10-inch tablets, the higher resolutions, because those numbers are starting to increase, and it's becoming more justifiable from a business perspective to do so.
So the Nexus 7 had its own kind of built-in sales motivator with its very, very low price. The Nexus 10 is still pricey. And, maybe rightfully so, because it's packing a really high-res screen and whatnot, and it's light and beautiful and whatever. But it's like, what is it? It starts at $399, doesn't it? Am I right? Am I wrong?
Yeah. That's right. Price point.
Yeah.
So it's very well and competitively priced when compared to other 10-inch tablets.
Right, but it's still not an
7-inch tablets.
Not an impulse purchase at all.
Premium.
It's not anywhere near in the ballpark of the Nexus 7. It's this kind of like $199 threshold of like, oh man, I can spare $199. So in light of that, I mean, how big a success do you each think this is going to be to close out the Nexus 10 before we move on?
Oh, I think it will be. I think the Nexus 10, as it is right now, will probably take a lot of users from other companies who are making 10-inch tablets. And I'm not necessarily referring to Samsung, even though the Note 10.1 isn't such a great device, right. Personal opinion here. But I think that the Nexus 10, with its high resolution and great build quality, and the Nexus factor, has got what it takes to launch.
Okay. Joe?
I'd have to agree. This finally gives people a Google branded device that is at least on par with the Apple equivalent devices, and for a little bit better price. It gives people another viable option where they might not have known about Samsung or Motorola or some of the other companies that are making Android-powered 10-inch tablets, and it puts that on the radar for them. It's not going to be the $99 or the $199 Nexus 7 that's competing with ebook readers, but it's still priced appropriately for what you're going to get, and it's going to succeed. It's going to do well, and we're going to see new versions of it down the road.
Not to use the buzzword from 2010, but the word that I think of when I think of the new Nexus brand is ecosystem. And I have said this on a podcast before, I'll say it again. I do kind of wake up mornings with insane ideas that I'm just going to go onto my computer, go to google.com/Nexus and order all three of them. Because the idea of having a device in each form factor, small, medium, and large, running the same platform, and that play nicely with each other, with things like Google Chrome Sync, you know what I mean, and being able to hop from one device to another and kind of have this faux continuous client experience is incredibly alluring.
Michael Fisher, you are finally understanding Apple fans who own the iPhone, the iPad mini, and the iPad.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, that is true. No, totally, absolutely. I get that. And
it goes beyond just that. You've also got the Google Play Store, which now is finally a viable alternative to iTunes, where you can have all of your music collection, you can have your books, you can have your movies, you can have your TV, and they're available across all of those platforms as well.
Yeah.
And then you combine that with wireless display, and you can watch all of that on your big screen TV without wires. There's your your AirPlay competitor as well. So Google is finally to the point where, yeah, from a device and media perspective, they are a real competitor.
Yeah. And that's real exciting to see, because I think it's going to turn up the heat under Apple's butt.
That's just one thing to note here.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. They are there. But what they need to work on is to make the content available in more regions. I can understand about devices, about 5 or 6 or 7 max Play stores. They need to do that with content, with books, with movies. Applications are all over in every Google Play Store in every region. But if I, in Romania, want to buy an app, I can do that. But no books, no movies, no music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
where Apple has the lead.
Yeah. I agree, and I feel your pain. Google is taking things a little bit differently. As an app developer, I can tell where I want my app distributed. I can say, I don't want this to go to Romania because I'm afraid Tony might pick it up. Don't sell it there. Or sell it in Romania for 10 times as much as I would anywhere else. I have that control as a developer. As developers, we want our apps as far and as wide as we can go, and as level of a playing field on price as we can, generally speaking. The same type of distribution model can be applied to other content, not just apps. So that's books, that's movies, that's...
Yeah, but there are copyrights.
Right, that's the thing with books and movies. Yeah, you've got other people's...
You have these license agreements, you have distribution models, you've got exclusivity agreements, you've got all this stuff that comes into play. So it's not Google's fault that it's not there. They do need to put the screws on and get those licenses
negotiated.
So put it there. Absolutely, but let's put the blame where the blame lays, and it's on the content providers for not letting their stuff go into those other countries. So take that animosity and rage that you have for Google and put it onto the whoever it may be, Time Warner, MGM, Touchstone, whoever it is that's distributing those, and not letting them be distributed in your country.
I feel like I'm having a flashback to an earlier episode of the Pocketnow Weekly.
I mean, Apple was in the same situation at the beginning when they launched iTunes as a service and an offering, and I think it's about it all comes down to how well you can negotiate the terms, and I think that it is possible. I also think that it's not in their best interest or not as high as on their priority list as I would like it to be.
And speaking of priority lists, unfortunately, we are running very short on time.
As usual.
Yeah, as usual. Not that I don't find digital rights management scintillating, but I could not care less about this leak, but we have to talk about it just very briefly. Tony, would you please tell us a little bit about the iPhone 5S leak and what you think about it? This image was leaked, 2 days ago?
I think no, it was yesterday, and
December 5,
it is
it was
coming
yesterday,
from
yes.
somewhere in Asia, if I recall well.
E-Trade Supply,
probably even
yeah.
China,
Yeah.
and it's basically a picture of an iPhone 5 from its back, and then the case of the iPhone open. And that's all I'm going to say about this, because I personally think that we're not looking at anything else but an early prototype of the iPhone 5 before it has received its FCC approvals and all the other things needed for these types of phones to go on sale. There are a couple of tweaks. We have two pictures side by side, the 5 and the so-called 5S. I think those are technological modifications from the early stage of a prototype until the final stage of the finished product. I think it is too early to talk about an iPhone 5S at the moment, even if Apple is going to do a twice-a-year cycle of releasing products. The iPhone 5 is still a new phone. It's still just getting its way into markets like China. So I think that this is, bottom line, an early prototype of the iPhone 5.
I would tend to agree. It looks like that to me. It doesn't look terribly interesting. I think that the more interesting part of this leak, or whether it turns out to be authentic or not, is, do you guys think, and this will be the only question I ask in the iOS section, do you guys think that Apple will do the same thing they did with the 4 and the 4S? Do you think that the next iPhone will be an iterative bump, and it'll be maybe even called the iPhone 5S?
I think yes. If you take a look at the internals of the iPhone 5, they are excellent if you're not comparing them to components of an Android phone. I mean, the iPhone 5 runs buttery smooth on iOS 6. Mm-hmm. So there's not too much to bump in terms of specifications. The CPU is good, the RAM is enough, the screen is good, the resolution is good. What I think Apple will do is so this is again a personal prediction, whenever we'll see the iPhone 5S, it will probably have a minor spec bump of some sort, but I think it will launch with the new iOS, a redesigned one, which will have probably Johnny Ive's signature on it. And that's going to be the selling point of the iPhone 5S.
From the Android side of things, I have to concur. We're going to see an iterative bump sometime. But it's going to be more focused around OS than it is around guts, because they just did a major overhaul to what's inside the iPhone, and they've just introduced the new screen resolution. So we can't do anything with the screen, or we're going to have developers mad again. Just upgrade the speed, upgrade stuff marginally.
The camera, the battery, something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's going to be iterative. It's going to be... And here's the new iPhone 5, which just makes the old iPhone 5, it builds on it. It makes it better.
Right. So just like the 4S came out with iOS 5, I think, and with Siri, and the iPhone 5 with iOS 6, I think the iPhone 5S will come out with something. I cannot put my finger on it or wrap my head around it, but it will be focused on the platform.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Well, I think that's completely reasonable, and I don't disagree at all. If I did, I would say something, but I don't.
That's because we're short on time.
We are so short on time, but that doesn't mean we don't read listener mail. And we had just one that I wanted to read very quickly, because William Lee has been waiting very patiently for us to read any of his mail on the air. And I like this as a little wrap-up point, because we have, as always, talked about every major platform there is in the news today on this episode. And William Lee has a 2-point piece of mail that is very short. He says, I remember Michael talking about if there's a good reason, such as camera, he would sacrifice weight and thickness, but now it has proven not to be as impressive. He's talking about the Lumia 920 here. Do you still think the Lumia is a wise choice if we are buying a daily driver to use for at least a year? That's the first part of his question. William, I have to say yes, absolutely. In my experience, the Lumia 920 has been excellent if you're in the market for a Windows phone. I really wouldn't buy anything else. And the camera is disappointing, yes, but it is, but only in the sense that my expectations were artificially bumped by the PureView branding. And also, once you learn how to use the scenes mode, you shouldn't have to do this. I'm not making excuses. I'm still irritated. But once you learn how to use the various tweaks in the viewfinder software, you can get some stunning pictures out of that camera, not to mention all the lenses and stuff. And the slight overexposure problems, the JPEG compression problems, are easily fixed in a software update that we've heard time and time again Nokia is actively working on. So, yes, I still think the 920 is an absolutely solid device. And for a smartphone camera, it's difficult to do better. But this applies to everyone, and this is a great way to wrap it up. So I'm glad William asked. To wrap it up, can everyone contribute their favorite phone currently selling so WebOS doesn't count? Thank you, William. Thanks for the reminder.
Somebody knows that somebody on the podcast likes WebOS.
I know. Stay tuned, by the way. We're going to have a cool WebOS video, I think, in the next week or so. Well, let's contribute. I'll go first as far as my favorite phone that is currently selling. The 920 is the one I own. So that one is, I have to answer personally, that would be my favorite on Windows Phone. But overall, I think that currently selling the Nexus 4 would probably have to be the one that I would choose, just kind of off the cuff. And, for reasons why, rewind about an hour. We talk all about it.
You can't choose the Nexus 4 because you haven't had it in hand. You haven't used it for a week.
That is true. That is true. But I mean, I know. Give me
He
photos.
trusts you.
Yeah, and also give me photos of 6 seaside mansions. I will pick my favorite one, despite not having been in any of them. When are you?
I was about to say something which would totally kill.
I know it. It's funny. I know exactly what you were going to say, and I'm glad you didn't. Tony, go. Why don't you give us your kind of answer to this broad question that I like?
Okay, Windows Phone 8X by HTC.
Oh.
Android, HTC One X Plus, and of course the iPhone 5, which happens to be my current daily driver. Not because I'm a fanboy, but because I'm kind of locked in the ecosystem, because I prefer the applications in terms of aspect on the Apple ecosystem versus the others.
Wow, I did not expect you to say Windows Phone 8X or HTC One X Plus. That's impressive. That's interesting. We should get into that on a future podcast because we don't have time to get into it right now.
We sure do.
Yeah, good. Thank you, Tony. What about you, Joe?
I'm thinking the iPhone 3. No, it's the Nexus 4, hands down. Absolutely love it.
Yeah. William, thank you for your mail. We kind of about once every 2 months we go into our personal devices and we start talking about that kind of stuff. And when we have time, we will follow it up with more there. But thank you very much for the mail. And gentlemen, thank you both very much for joining me on the air today. It was enjoyable as always. Do you any parting thoughts from Tony before we go?
I'm looking forward to CES, where you will be there on the floor, and I need you to upload a video, a hands-on of the WebOS toaster or the Android dishwasher or something.
Oh, I'll find that Android blender that we didn't get to at IFA.
Or if not, that MVC.
Sure. Yeah. Exactly. I will be at CES with Brandon Miniman and with Jaime Rivera, which will be great. And maybe he will teach me how to pronounce his name properly with the rolled R while we're there, so that commenters can stop making fun of my standard American pronunciation. Joe, you have final thoughts?
Well, I've got my traditional, it's a great day to be alive, but I wanted to go into just a little bit of what you guys are talking about. Of all the platforms out there, Android is the only one that has a development kit for doing just what you're making fun of. We have the ADK, so an Android-powered toaster or plant water detector or fridge, we can do that with off-the-shelf, ready-to-go SDKs and whatnot today. So you'll see it on Android first.
That's so impressive.
Michael, do you remember that iOS application at IFA to monitor your plans?
Do I ever? I just threw away that business card recently, actually. Yeah, Tony and I were checking out an interesting accessory at IFA that did exactly what you just said. And yes, indeed. Yes, I spent far too long pretending that I was interested in the accessory. Okay, that's
we should wrap it up.
Yeah, I think you're right. That wraps it up for episode 21 or 021 of the Pocketnow Weekly. Throw a tweet our way, listeners. Most of us are active on the Twitter sphere, and we say funny things and dumb things and smart things all in order. Joe Levi is at Joe Levi. Tony is Anton D. Nagy, at ANTON D NAGY. And you can find me at Captain Two Phones. That's Captain the number 2 phones. Follow Pocketnow's official Twitter account. Pocketnow Tweets is the name. Follow us on Facebook and Google+. Leave us a review on iTunes or Xbox Music, formerly Zune, if you like the podcast. And if you have a topic, question, or suggestion for the podcast, or you just want to say hi for whatever reason, email us, podcast@pocketnow.com. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
We'll see you.